A lot of Hispanic and Latino parents will literally try to teach you at a young age to not be friends with black people, and it's fucking disgusting. They show you racism, anti-blackness, like colorism at a fucking young age. You could be a dark-skinned Latino, and yet you will get a lot of fucking hate. Not only that, media will even fucking show that shit too. Where literally they show that white Latinos are literally rich, smart, educated, and they're always holy. But when it comes to black people or Afro Latinos, they're ghetto, they're poor, uneducated, and they're criminals.
Hey, what's up, everybody? How you doing? I hope you're doing great wherever you are today. Now, as you know, these are present agentic stories, and I'm hoping that you're super fine. Now, there's an important topic that I feel like we need to have a discussion about. For the longest time, American blacks they have been painted wrongly by different communities. Yes, even me as an African, I believe we are guilty because the side of the story that we are told about black people, it is not the truth. Leaving not Latinos. Latinos in this case are coming out sharing why and how they were taught to hate black people. And you sit down, you ask yourself, why is it all hate to black people? Because you get to understand, even some of us back here in the motherland Africa, when we having immigrants who are going to the United States, some parents will tell them, don't negotiate, don't integrate with a group of people. And I've heard black people trying to complain about this. However, I won't say that not all Latinos or not all immigrants are doing this. We have a group of folks who are doing well. But for educational purposes, why were people taught to hate black people? And I feel like this is a propaganda that was put to make black folks and other groups not to join hands, not to unite, right? Because as a person, it took me time to understand, to gain a perspective about who really are black Americans. My understanding of black Americans initially and my understanding of black Americans now it's different. Trust me. Right now, having a relationship with American blacks. Some are like my family that I talk to daily. Some are my friends. Some we talk a few times because of the social media that made me understand and I immersed myself in getting to understand this. But why are we having this group of Latinos who hate black people? Because they relate so much with whiteness as compared to black, and why they were taught to hate black people. And you can understand that there are some parents in the Latino community that doesn't want black people to doesn't want their kids to have kids with black people because they believe that the kid will be black, and black is something which is not cherished. I want us to watch this video. I'll be back and we'll have a thought-provoking commentary as we head to the end.
Because let's talk about this shit, because this shit is so true. A lot of Hispanic and Latino parents will literally try to teach you at a young age to not be friends with black people, and it's disgusting. They show you racism, anti-blackness, like colorism at a fucking age. You could be a dark-skinned Latino, and yet you will get a lot of hate. Not only that, media will even show that shit too. Where literally they show that white Latinos are literally rich, smart, educated, and they're always holy. But when it comes to black people or Afro Latinos, they're ghetto, they're poor, uneducated, and they're criminals. And not only that, a lot of these celebrities believe this shit too. And also, they do blackface. And that's why a lot of people don't want to unite when it comes to the Hispanic Latino community because of the amount of fucking anti-blackness, the racism towards black people. And not only that, y'all forget that literally black people have influence our fucking community so much, from technology, from food, to even music. And some of y'all bitches be dancing to those music that literally were influenced by black people. Hmm. It, and it's even worse in this section. People are showing their true colors. And that's why people hate us, because the amount of anti-blackness.
Within my mother's side of the family, there's a lot of light-skinned Dominicans and dark-skinned Dominicans. My twin sister's darker than me. My older sister's what you call Haba, which is light skin, kinky hair. But there's the mentality, even within my family, that we ain't black. You know, we're Dominican. I was always trying to school my parents. And my father would always say something derogatory, like if I tell my dad some story about something that happened in the subway, he would say, oh, he was a black guy, right? It was like, what, because you're white? So I'd have to challenge him. I needed him to understand that he was black too, you know, and that he was the man and he was black.
Why are so many Latinos racist against black people? Good question. So first of all, let me start by acknowledging that's the truth. And anyone that says otherwise is not helpful in this whole conversation. Like white people saying, I don't see color. Secondly, race is just a construct that was invented by European people intended to divide us, which they successfully managed to do. And unfortunately, just like many other purposefully marginalized communities, we play along exactly into the narrative of letting them divide us. We all have that tío or abuelito or papa in our family that is racist, that is, has issues with black people or Asian people, or is homophobic or transphobic. And most likely it's more family members than not. The issue is that it's really difficult to have these conversations. But we need to have these conversations with our own community. We need to call out, call in, and educate our own family members, our own friends. And too often I see Latinos stay silent. And they say, oh, that's just how he is. And yes, I use he a lot because it's a lot of times the man, at least in my experience. And if you live in LA, you probably know the scandal we recently had with the leaked audio. For me, the only scandal really was that so many Latinos that I know pretended that that's a surprise. Really? That's exactly like white people pretending that they're surprised that racism exists. There are so many issues in our Latino community, from being anti-black to brown people calling themselves white. I mean, please identify as whatever you want, but it's weird. To light-skinned Latinos like myself, pretending that they have the same racism to deal with as a black person. And then there is the whole other layer of not being Latino enough, not being black enough, not being brown enough. It's like our community is so busy tearing each other down that we lost sight of who is actually doing the oppression here. I had a US-born friend here in LA whose both parents were Mexican, but she has never been to Mexico and she doesn't speak Spanish. And she told me that in her opinion, I wasn't really Mexican, which I thought was funny. And I immigrated as an adult. I'm not even first generation. I'm a Mexican immigrant in the United States. But to her, just because my mom was European, that was enough to tell me I wasn't actually Latina. And those are the same kind of people that pretend that all Latinos are brown and act like Afro-Latinos don't exist. It's time for all of us to unite, because together we're not the minority. We are the majority if we just have each other's back.
The best example of how anti-black the Latinx community can be and is that the Dominican Republic and Haiti is on the same island, but only the Dominican Republic is considered Latin America, to most people at least. Like, it's only been the past few years that I realized that since I'm Haitian American, I am also Afro Latinx. And the way it doesn't even sit right with me, because I've never been considered that by the Latinx community, is wild. Like, even on our island of Hispaniola, the anti-blackness, the racism, the colorism is wild. And I don't know, like, it literally blows my mind.
I lived in Miami for almost a year, and while I was there, in the apartment building that I was living in Pembroke Pines, there were some Mexican guys doing some repairs on the roof. They saw me pass by walking my dog, and they say, "Beautiful, morena." And I was like, "Oh, thank you." And they say, "Where are you from?" And I say, "Cuba." They say, "Cuba? We didn't know people in Cuba look like you." And I said, "Like me, like what? Black?" And he just stopped on his tracks and changed the subject. Majority of Latino people are very racist. I didn't know that I was living in a very racist country until I met my Jamaican husband, and he made me realize how racist people in Cuba were. And once your eyes are open to this, you cannot unsee it. There was a time in Jamaica when you could watch Spanish television. We had two TV stations, Univision and Telemundo. These TV stations, each of them had one black anchor. One had one female for the news, and the other one had a male, two black people. Both TV stations show a wide array of telenovelas, which is basically Spanish soap operas. And these telenovelas were made and produced in Latin America. Brazil, Colombia, Mexico are one of the biggest places where soap operas are made. Now you tell me now how a Colombian telenovela of 350 episodes don't have one black person in it. If you see a black actor on a telenovela, is actually playing a slave or a character that they are trying to bring back to life, like Celia Cruz. So these have just added to that white supremacy and had made people from other places believe that black people doesn't exist in Latin America any at all. So if as a Jamaican, you travel to Miami and you suffer what he did, don't be surprised. I'm sorry this happens to you, but it's a sad truth. Hopefully this will change soon in the future. Thanks for watching. Mucha love.
Not every Latina identifies as black.
Racist Latinos do not identify with being black because they was told by their parents that they are better than you. They look down on you. They think you're not going to be anything in life. This is what they think when they see you outside. They think, hey, they're not going to be nothing. Don't hang out with them. They think if they discriminate and be racist towards you, that white people are going to accept them. And that's where it's coming from. It has been taught by their parents. They don't want to be black. This is why it's mind-boggling. I keep hearing black people saying black and brown. Even black celebrities and rappers. Black and brown? Are you kidding me? What have brown people done for black people?
Here lies the problem. There are Latin women and Hispanic women who talk about, oh, I'm Latin this, I'm Hispanic that, I stand for my people, la raza, blah, 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 blah. And then they are against black people. They're against things black people do. They show their racism, but then they want to be black when they want to be black when it benefits them. Okay? So not everybody that's a Latin person or Hispanic person identifies as black. A lot of them fake the funk just to fit in where they can get in. However, my original post referred to the Latin women holding off on doing their follow train and let the black women do what they need to do. And for very obvious reasons. Now, people are going to do what they want to do. And if somebody feels some type of way about it, hey, that's on them. That's not on me. But here lies what doesn't make sense. If you identify as a Latina and you want to start a Latina follow train, when do you become a black person too? Because if a black person, if black women are having the black women, black girls follow train, then, and you identify as black, then you should be doing the train, following that train, right? But Latin women want to start their own. So are these just straight Latin women that don't identify as black or have no kind of black ancestry? You get what I'm saying?
Black people stay hating on Latinos. Is it jealousy? No. Jealousy? What? Jealous of what? There are black Latinos, so what is your point?
I feel like something people don't talk about is like the prejudice that we have within Latino communities. So I grew up in Miami, like most of us are Latino in Miami, but I did like experience like racism and things like that because of my skin color, because of my features. So that's something that like I struggled with. But at the end of the day, like my mom, I remember something she would do is like when Miss Universe would come on, she'd be like, look at all like the brown ladies. Like sometimes it'd be like Miss Venezuela was like una morena. And she'd be like, look at her. Because my mom is a white Latina. So we look different in some ways. So that was kind of like a shock because where I was from in Nicaragua, I didn't experience that. We were all brown, you know, we all look similar to me. But in Miami, we have so many different cultures. And unfortunately, there is that prejudice within our community.
I was asked if there is racism in the Dominican Republic. This is a difficult subject because racial discrimination in my country is normalized. And most of the people don't think we have a racism issue, which makes the dialogue difficult. But yes, there is racism in the Dominican Republic and there is colorism too. I realized that for people outside our cultural context, to hear that on a country where the majority of people is black or mulatto, there is racism sounds absurd. But hear me out. This is a consequence of colonialism. During colonial dominion, there is an imposition of language, religion, and culture of the colonizers. So we were taught to believe that everything that was black or African was bad or ugly. Follow me for more.
I faced discrimination for speaking my native tongue. Time and time again, white sailors would butt into my private conversations to confront my friends and I for speaking Spanish. They would say things like, it's rude to speak Spanish. Stop speaking that language. This is America. And to be clear, this would happen when I was chilling with my friends, not during work hours. There were times I felt helpless, like the system was against us, even though we had every right to speak our language. But I wasn't one to just sit there and take it. I would argue back, and that would often get me into trouble. But I didn't care because I was putting my life on the line for this country. And I'll be damned if someone's gonna restrict my freedom of speech. So to all the racists and xenophobes who keep telling us to speak English, listen up. It's disrespectful to tell anyone not to speak their native tongue. Because this is America, a land of immigrants, a melting pot of cultures where we could go to any restaurant and speak any language que nos pega la gana. And if you don't like it, too bad, because we're not going anywhere.
So my parents call me Prieto. Prieto means dark. Or Negro. Negro obviously means black. And that's literally what they call me, right? My cousins will call me Negrito. And I guess in Mexico, it's so desensitized. But again, in Mexico, slavery was abolished way before the US. So maybe that's why it's not a thing. I don't know. Now, with that being said, I'm the dark kind of Mexican, obviously, right? So I'm actual brown, not peachy brown. I'm brown. It's now becoming a thing. More recently, I started hearing about colorism. Like colorism, this is the first year that I hear about it. I've never heard about it in my life. Racism, obviously we grew up with that, right? Like we grew up knowing about it. I've always refused to be a victim or whatever. Nonetheless, I acknowledge that it's a real thing, right? It exists. So in Mexico, the racism and colorism stuff isn't as apparent, but I guess it's a thing. I've never experienced it, but then again, I don't go to Mexico too often. Yeah, here in the US, I don't think people can call or have those nicknames for other people, especially if their color, actual color, is not the same color, right? So I don't think a white person calls things to people, which is kind of weird. That in Mexico it is allowed. So anyways, let me know what you guys think. Are Mexicans racist? I don't think so. It comes from a place of love when they say those things. At least that's what I think. But let me know what you guys think.
Hello guys, welcome back to the channel. I hope you heard the sentiments of brothers and sisters who try to share their perspective in regards to what's really happening. Now, a couple of things that I have to say. It takes time for a person to sit down to understand who really are American blacks And as I said earlier, how, I mean, my concept of understanding American blacks like 1 year ago and today, the perspective has changed because I get to understand, I get to know the real, the true nature of black people. I don't want to say much, I don't want to say bad, I don't want to say good, but all I know is that what I've been told about them, 90% or higher part of it has been a lie, right? So when you see people come out and getting to realize that really what they are taught about black people is not the truth, because you get to realize that a lot of things has just had to happen for people to realize that all along black people have been telling the truth. For instance, look at the question of the last year's presidential election in the United States. When black folks told people not to vote for Mr. Donald Trump, people are like, why should I listen to you? Yet you're black people. This is in relation to Hispanics or Latinos. But right now, people are getting to understand that, oh, black people are not really that bad. White women also are getting to understand that, oh, white people are not really, black people are not really that bad as we thought. And now you get to ask yourself, then who are these people who are spreading all these propagandas about black people? Because I believe you have to sit down and get to understand and get to have a perspective. You need to experience. You need to sit down. You need to, immerse yourself, talk to them. And this is what I've done. I'm talking from a perspective of a person who have interacted with American blacks, right? Like person to person, like a person that you talk to them daily. You get to understand like who they really are. And you sit down and you ask yourself, then why were they saying this about them? I like to say, have your own story. Don't listen to people's story, because most of the times things that are being said are lies. Black people talked about this, and black people try to share about how they feel about this. Somebody saying that I'm a black old lady, and I have to say, in my senior years, I have been treated with kindness and respectful by most people except Latinos. Very disrespectful people really pisses me off to know your elders taught you that hate. My sons, grandsons, nephews, and great nephews, family of full males were taught to respect everyone with an extra dose of respect and kindness for their elders, whatever color of their skin. You young Latin parents, do better than your ignorant parents' life will work out better for you and for your children. Again, do better. Yes, there is a point that I'll have to note from what these women have said. There's a clip, I think I shared it in this channel, in my channel. There's this woman who was trying to she had like 3 kids. They were, of course, Latinos. And then there was this lady with the black hair. And they were like, ooh, you don't look beautiful. And the child was like trying to look at the other kids. They didn't have black hair. But this Latino kid had a black hair. And she felt like she's not beautiful for having black hair. She was a little bit darker as compared to the lighter kids. So what does this show you? This implies that this teaches you to understand that black is not something which is so good. Black is something which is not appealing in the eye. Like, you understand how a child grows, getting to know this, getting to understand this. But this is not the truth, because people are getting to realize that it is the indoctrination. And parents are indoctrinating their kids in making them to hate black folks, even with no reason. I will not fail to mention the achievements of black people and how they have done. We having people like the Latin Americans, the Hispanics, other groups of people, Africans included. Some of us who are in the United States, they need to realize and accept that, and this is true. I'm not saying to please black Americans, but this is the truth. They need to realize that it is black people that have made it easier for them to come. A black person can walk freely. It is because of the civil rights movement that black people started when they carried the placards. And this did not only benefit black people, it also benefited Chinese, Japanese, Asians in general, Hispanics, Latinos, name it all, right? So if a parent is fair or they're trying to tell their kids not to associate with black people, they need to realize that you're sending your son or your daughter to the United States. You need to do a research and understand why you're telling them not to associate. It is because the media has taught you, or the media has taught black person, not a black person, but has taught all these groups of people that black people are A, B, C, and D. Maybe you're making a judgment through movies, which doesn't really represent the true picture of, okay, there is some truth, but not entirely truth, right? Most of it is not the truth. So I think as an African, I'm speaking from an African perspective, we have a long way to go. We have a long way as diasporans to understand each other. We have a long way to sit down together, immerse ourselves in different cultures, get to understand the wrongs and the goods of some things that if you do to a person, they'll not feel well or they'll not feel better about it. So as you know, these are presenter Jindoc stories. I hope that you are great wherever you are. As you know, I hope I'm going to be seeing you in my next video. If you're watching this video for the first time, I'll most definitely ask you to subscribe to the channel, join our membership, and really get so we can offer you. But until then, I'm hoping to see you in my next video. Peace, love, and harmony. Salute.